Hey guys, so yesterday my friend Tim Grimes made, I think, one of my favorite videos on YouTube, where there was a lot of yelling and ranting about the manifestation community, or the language, specifically like the language that's used. And one of the things he was ranting about that I thought was really funny was, awareness. It's like the term awareness gets bandied about, and it's a big one, and people take it, I don't know. I get his rantiness about it, because people talk about it like it's, I don't know, so much is talked about in this space like it's some weird, woo-woo thing, when it's really, looking at it from the human perspective, it's really not that woo. I mean, it's all here and accessible to us through, fairly easy means. Honestly, it's not that difficult to start doing this stuff and to get better at it over time. And I wanted to talk about awareness specifically in the context of having an intention to change yourself, taking on, assuming a change and then persisting in it until it, becomes known to you, becomes real to you, becomes truth, becomes you, part of your identity, that kind of thing. Because for me anyway, awareness is not, meditation and floating off into the ether where you are just the I am consciousness. Awareness to me is literally, you're aware right now. Tim said this in his video. You're aware right now. That's what awareness is. You're aware of yourself and your surroundings right now. You're not off somewhere else, not present, essentially. And becoming aware of yourself in the moment right now is an instrumental part of all of this manifestation stuff. It's instrumental in learning to control your reactions. It's instrumental in being in a situation and remembering what you're trying to do, so that you filter whatever's happening right now and however you're going to act upon it, through the intention that you have. That's what it means. It's, it boils down to being present. If not all the time, then at the right time, then at the important moments, the moments that you either go in this direction or this direction, depending on whether or not you're here making present decisions based on where you're trying to go, or whether you're just acting on autopilot. And I think a lot of people in this community think you just imagine something and then your autopilot immediately changes. And even if it feels exactly that, like you're doing the exact same things as you did yesterday, now you're going to have a different outcome. Neville Goddard even says this in his fundamentals. I think it's his fundamentals lecture. He basically says, whether you're going to have the discipline to, I'm paraphrasing heavily, whether you're going to have the discipline to be here and continually monitor, am I being different? Am I reacting differently? That's not, that's, if you're unable to do that, that's user error. That's not proof that the law isn't real. So basically, awareness is just being present. It's just interrupting the autopilot, really. That's all. I mean, okay, maybe I'm not going to say that's all it is. In terms of manifestation, in terms of the things that most people are interested in, awareness right now is going to be the difference between you autopiloting to the same place you've always been, or you starting to form a new path forward, a different way that's going to eventually turn into a different autopilot. You don't have to be aware all the time of what you're doing in whatever this area is you're trying to change. I'm experiencing this myself right now in a small way. This just occurred to me. I wasn't thinking about talking about this, so I don't know if this is going to come out in any kind of meaningful way, but I've talked on here before about basically my goal, which was to more or less change from a person that has had an issue, like a lifelong perceived problem with food, and like that's kind of like my vice. You could think of it like sort of like a drinking problem or something like that. It's not really an addiction so much as it is a dysfunctional relationship, a dysfunctional view about this substance, and then about my, largely about my appearance. So they go hand in hand, but they're not exactly the same thing. But so the reason I say that they're not exactly the same thing is that I have looked generally, for the most part, exactly the way I want to, and still had this sort of issue. I was still kind of imprisoned. Like for example, to explain more, whatever, let me just get on with what I was going to say. Maybe I'll revisit that. But anyway, so I had the intention, I just want to be free of that. I don't know if I'll ever, as long as I have a memory of the past, I'll never be a person who naturally doesn't have a problem with this. I'll be a person who essentially recovered and no longer has a problem with it, but I'll never be able to say I never had a problem with this. I'm just naturally okay with this. And I get that, and that's not a big deal. So I'm not trying to, in my mind, manifest the impossible, but I am trying to manifest essentially the best. And when I say manifest, I mean allow this change to happen without fighting to try to get it or toiling or worrying about it. I am trying to manifest this mental change so that I can essentially be free of it, because that's what I really want. I realized at 1:15, it's not 1:15 that I want, it's the mental freedom that I want. And I assume the mental freedom would also correspond with the ability to essentially have the body I want, because once you're mentally free, it's just a matter of, essentially manifesting the way to whatever it is you want. I can manifest. By manifesting, again, I just mean deciding this is what I want and allowing the way to be revealed to me. And so one of the ways that I'm really, I don't want to say struggling, but I'm having a hard time. It's challenging to become aware of what is it that I am planning to do here that is coming from the inspired manifestation state about this, and what is coming from just sort of a non-resistant feeling to something that I've always been certain of. Did that make sense? When you know a way to get somewhere. So like for me, I lost like 75 pounds a few years ago. And for me, like, I know exactly how to get there. I know one surefire way to get there that is not painful, especially from the right mindset. It wasn't painful for me to lose that weight once I shifted my mind in the right way. And that was the right way for that to happen for me at the time, which was to diet and to exercise. It wasn't even really hard. Sometimes it was, occasionally there were moments, but most of the time it was just sort of an exhilarating ride. It was just how you want to feel. Like, in terms of like knowing that you're going towards something in the right way. Looking back on that, I remember how exhilarating it was. And the exhilaration is the sign that you're, when you're totally jazzed about something, that is the ideal place to be, right? That's that inspired feeling that comes when you're like really in tune with the exact right way to do something, when you're in alignment. That phrase that Esther Hicks uses, alignment, vibrational match, that kind of thing. It's just like, I don't know, it feels really good most of the time. And so I constantly have this experience from the past to reflect on, where I ate a certain way, I exercised a certain way, and it brought me the outer result that I wanted. And so I have that to reflect on, and it's really difficult not to just autopilot in that direction and kind of confuse that for the right feeling thing, because there's such a sense of certainty that I have about that way. I know it works, that I just default to that. If I am not aware right now about how I am feeling in relation to the thing I'm doing, I will just autopilot. And unfortunately, this autopilot goes straight to a place that looks very much like where I want to be, but isn't where I want to be. And so I've been noticing this subtle dissatisfaction. I'm somebody who always goes to the gym, I'm somebody who's always like kind of watching what I'm eating. I mean, sort of. I'm aware of what I'm eating without really restricting it. And this has been one of those subtle differences that it's really hard for me to catch. Today I went to the gym. This morning I went to the gym just to go for a walk. And about 15 minutes into it, I felt this feeling, this dissatisfied feeling. And I just sort of came to in the moment, and I thought, you know what? I'm autopiloting right now. I'm doing what I feel, this non-resistant certainty towards doing, and I'm starting to feel resistance. And this is not a situation where I'm meant to just do it anyway. Like, this feeling is telling me that I am not tapped into the right thing. And there are a million other ways to be healthy and to have the body that you want than walking around the track at the gym. This has been very difficult. I've done this like 3 times in the last week. Every day I get up and go to the gym. I don't even consider not doing it. And 3 times this week I've gone in, and within like 20 minutes I was like, this doesn't feel right. I need to leave. And I don't know where that's leading. And it's really difficult to just say, well, I guess I'm not doing anything today that appears from my old frame of mind to lead to the outcome that I want. This is completely bizarre, but it makes sense if you look at the goal, right? The goal is not to do what I did before, it's to do a new thing. It's to achieve a different state, a different mental state. It's to exist in a different way habitually. And it makes sense that that's not going to be the same thing that happened before. Right? But at the time, in the moment, you know what? This is such a subtle thing. It's almost impossible for me to convey this. I don't know if that even is making sense to anybody, but like, there's obviously a different route I'm supposed to be taking to this thing I want. It's the only thing that makes sense, that it would be a different route. But because because I keep doing this habitual thing that doesn't really feel that bad, I don't have a huge resistance to it. Seems logical, seems to like check all the boxes. I don't even know. It occurred to me while I was walking around the track this morning. It occurred to me, hey, it's possible that I'm going to get so engrossed in something that has nothing to do with physical activity that I will simply just drop this whole thing. Like, this doesn't even need to be like something that I think about at all. This area of my life, this correction that I'm continuing to spend energy on daily, to think about, how's this going to happen? I need to do something, it's this habitual thing that doesn't feel foreign to me. It doesn't feel wrong. It doesn't have that feeling of divine, I don't want to say divine inspiration. It doesn't have that feeling of just that little touch of inspired excitement. It doesn't have that. I'm not attracted to it. I don't feel jazzed about it. I felt so psyched about this 4 years ago when I was like really doing this big change. Now it's not a big change. This is more of a lifestyle maintenance. How am I going to live my life in the future? I want to lose about 20 pounds still. But that doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter the way it used to. It's just, this is a different ballgame, and I'm still approaching it the same way that I did the last time that this worked, from a totally different mental place. And without that awareness, which I have not had, this is the thing with consistency. I would say this is the biggest mental change I will ever have had to intentionally make in my life. It's like a major shift, a major difference in approach to life. Not having this be an issue that I think about requires a major shift that I can't even conceive of all the moving parts of what that will mean. And I'm barely even out the gate with it. Like, the hard part, some of the hard mental part has passed, for sure. But this becoming aware, this is like an all-day program that is running. This is like it's one of those things where it's so big, it's just kind of like encompasses everything. And to shift away from it is kind of scary in a way. It's definitely just a total unknown. And without the constant awareness and the constant reminder of, no, we're not trying to accomplish this goal. We're trying to accomplish this goal that looks similar, but is different and is going to require different thinking. Like, those two things get confused constantly. There's definitely over the last few years, there's been some confusion about, am I really willing to spend a lot of time? I don't know. It's just been a wishy-washy thing where there's been some issues with like patience. Anyway, becoming aware of it and, often enough, and then having sort of like the guts to just say, well, from my old perspective, I'm going to just go ahead and choose to make what I perceive to be no progress today, because I'm going to drop this thing that doesn't feel inspired, and I'm going to chill out and try to allow try to get to the place where I could receive the inspired instruction, essentially, the inspired impulse. That is a challenge. And that is why awareness is required, because if you don't have it, you will autopilot. You will autopilot. And becoming aware in the moment that one of these autopilot programs is running, especially if it doesn't feel horrible, that is incredibly challenging. And it builds on itself over time. This is another thing, that I don't think people like to hear. Some of this deep self-change is something that requires diligence, persistence over time. Neville says it, everyone says it, because it's the truth. So anyway, I don't know if any of that made sense, but I was inspired by Tim's yelling, which I loved. I love when people get emotional and get it all out. It's the best. It's the best. Anyway, have a great day. I hope that helps somebody with any kind of insight into their own situation. Bye.